I am Jacqueline Woodson.
Okay. I am Damon Young.
And
together we are.
So thanks for coming out. Damon and I are here, and we wanted to talk a bit about our books and brown bodies and the publishing world. So I have a book called Red at the Bone coming out, and when my publicist asked who I'd want to be in conversation with, I immediately said that I wanted to be in conversation with Damon, because I don't know how many of you have read What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker, which is phenomenal, or followed you on your blog, Very Smart Brothers, which is where I first learned about you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so VSB is my blog, and the book, What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker, as Jacqueline just said. It's been out for, I guess, a couple months now.
Oh.
And hearing that you requested me, like this whole entire process has been so surreal. And I have a friend who, when I told them I was doing this with you, was going to fly in from Jamaica just to witness this. And so I'm texting her as soon as I get off stage, like, she requested me, to give her some FOMO. But yeah, the book it exists. It's a book about Pittsburgh, about me, about masculinity, about performance, and about black bodies, which I guess we're supposed to be talking about today. And it's a book where I just felt like the humanity exists in the vulnerability that is present in the book.
So, can I just ask, how many of you know about What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker and/or have read it? Okay. So, and I know you haven't read Red at the Bone yet. I mean, some of you may have gotten the galley, but it's not out until September. But I wanted to ask you a question about What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker. There's this fabulous, fabulous essay in the book where Damon is talking about people posturing. And it's the guy, I think his name was James, who had the Porsche. His family had a nice car.
He had a car. It wasn't a Porsche. He had a car.
Okay, he had a car, which was big, because I didn't grow up with a car, so I know what it's like. So families that had cars seem very wealthy to me. And at this one point, James's name is?
That was his name in the book. Yes.
Oh, okay. Calls you out and Damon just goes up to him and basically says, you know what, the world's going to remember me, but not you. I'm completely paraphrasing. And I was just so curious about, I felt like that was such the core for me, of What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker, and the way we are constantly asked to perform in the world in a certain way, or be expected to be in the world in a certain way that's not necessarily our truth.
Yeah, that idea of performance is a recurring theme throughout the book, where there are these socialized pressures. If you are a black male, to be a certain way, to act a certain way, to treat women a certain way, to treat your peers a certain way, and particularly if you're an athlete. And I played basketball in high school and college, and if you don't meet that expectation, which none of us do, like three people, like Idris Elba, like Denzel in like 1989. And so you feel that gap between the reality and the aspiration with performance. And as you were saying, I went to the suburban high school, but I grew up in a hood. My parents didn't have much money. We didn't have a car. I go out to the suburbs and I interact with these kids who are trying to act like they were from the hood. And it's like, yo, you have a front yard and a backyard. Like your parents have enough money for you to drive a car to school. Like, you're not hood, and there's nothing wrong with being that, but you're just not that. And looking back and thinking about it, just made me realize that not only was I performing, but they were performing too. And again, that's a concept that recurs throughout the book, just this idea of performance and of erecting this facade that exists in place of you. And it's such a, it becomes such a thing that it becomes sentient, where you don't exist anymore. It's just this facade, this performance. And, I wanted to ask you, since you are you, how does it feel, and not even talking about the book per se, but just getting in front of so many people so often, and it's almost as if you're inside out, where you go to speak to people, you're at things like this, and people have read your work, and they feel like they know you, and they come up to you and talk to you and want to touch you, and like, how do you
cry?
How do you contend with that? How do you deal with that?
I think the tears are the hardest. When you're signing a book and someone starts crying because of something you've read, because I think as writers, we're empaths in this way, right? We feel all of this emotion. We feel the emotion of our characters. I don't write a sentence without feeling what that character is feeling. And sometimes it's some deep devastation that speaks to the reader or speaks to the reader's experience, so that when we finally meet face to face, they do feel as though they truly know me, and because they know my character so deeply. And when when someone cries, it's hard for me, because that's the moment without the facade of the book, or the facade of the podium, or the facade of Jacqueline Woodson versus Jack, which is what a lot of my friends call me. And I think for the most part, and I've heard this again and again, we are introverts. Writers are introverts. We spend a lot of time alone with our words and our ideas and the people who live in our heads, and we like that. and so then this Jacqueline Woodson side that comes out to speak, it is that, as you said, turning inside out and trying to remain deeply honest, especially when I'm speaking to young people, because young people see you, and the minute you try to do something that's not true, they know it, and they know you're not being honest with them. And I think it's for me, I think there is a lot of self-protection that goes on at home. I have my partner, I have my kids, I have my village that surrounds me, and it's a very kind of insular village, and I think that's where I protect myself. There's also the fact that when we talk about brown bodies, I walk out of here, I walk out of libraries, I walk out of schools, and I'm not Jacqueline Woodson. I'm just a brown girl on the street. I'm not getting recognized. I mean, for a long time, there was my picture on the subway, so people recognized me, but then I changed my hair and that went away. But I become another black person on the street. And on the street in New York City, or on the street in Park Slope, where I'm one of 2 black families on my block, and I think having children, having America, and having a village, it keeps me very humble, and it keeps me remembering that this thing I'm doing, it may feel big at points, but it's a very small part of a big universe, and a big world, and a big city. So when I leave here, I put my headphones on, I go back into my head, and I exhale.
Yeah, that point about introverts, is definitely crucial. I'm an INTJ if you like do the Myers-Briggs, which is like the introvert's introvert. And so doing this, I will say that writing my book, which was so vulnerable and had so many of these really deep anxieties and neuroses and self-consciousnesses that are just injected in every chapter, it almost unlocks something where now it's easier to do this because the book exists. I liken it to, I don't know, having a fear of heights and then going skydiving.
Which will never happen.
Yeah,
I'm so
me neither.
afraid of
Yeah,
heights.
I'm not. That's a bad analogy because I'm never going to do that. But yeah, just this idea of the public you. and the private you, and how those different yous intersect, and how the audience engages, and how also those different yous engage with the world. Because and you're talking about being Jacqueline Woods or being Jackie. Just once you leave here, you're just another black body navigating through America. And have you found that having being the person whose face is on the subway, or being the person who is recognized until you change your hair, does that help at all?
Does it help?
Well, does it help in terms of how safe? Are you safer? Do you feel more safe as just Jack or as Jacqueline Woodson when you leave
that's
here?
Such a good question, because I'm going to ask you the same question. I think I feel safe in knowing who I am. I think my daughter's always talking about how conceited I am. And it was so funny because my daughter's 17 and now she's looking at colleges, and I'm AKA. I'm AKA to the bone. Even though I don't look like an AKA, I am Alpha Kappa Alpha to the bone. And since she was a little girl, she's I've been like, oh, you're probably going to play JK. You're, just kind of trying to put the, but she, it was funny because yesterday she said to me, she told a friend that her mom was AK because the friend's mom was Delta. And the girl said to her, oh, you don't seem like the daughter of an AKA. And she's like, well, what's the daughter of an AKA like? And she's like, well, they're cocky and conceited, which my daughter's always saying about me. And so she then kind of put it together. And I think there is this kind of conceitedness to me that's self-protection. Like I know who I am. So
you're the shit. Yeah.
I know. I think I know that I've survived, right? I think I know this about all black people. We've survived, even though we weren't meant to in this country. And so, and I think from a very young age, I was being told that, that it's not about survival. It's about having to survive, having survived. And so I think that I'm like, you can't kill us all. And I think that's one of the many things that I loved about your book, right down to the title of What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker, and coming to understand the power of who we are in the world. And it helps a lot. I mean, I definitely have those moments where I'm like, I am so tired of having this fight. And I don't know if people were here the first day of BookCon, but I was on this panel, and at one point, the diversity, it was an all-white panel and me, which a long time ago, I decided not to be on anymore, and I ended up on it. And at one point, we were asking about diversity, and all the women on the panel looked at me. I'm like, why are y'all looking at me? And it's exhausting, and it's as we say in our community, you laugh to keep from crying sometimes. But it is definitely the constant negotiating the spaces in the world because of the body.
Yeah, and I'm. It's okay. So yesterday, we neighborhood we live in. It's mostly, I'd say 70% white neighborhood in Pittsburgh on the north side, and they had this yard sale, and it was a neighborhood-wide yard sale where people from all over the city were coming and coming and buying stuff, and like probably 80 different homes had yard sales and whatever. And my mother-in-law came and did a thing there, and so. In Pittsburgh, because I've written this book and there's been a lot of press in the city, people know who I am, and my face is on the cover, which wasn't my idea, but it is on the cover, so people, know me when they see me. And so I'm holding my 6-month-old son.
Oh, congratulations.
My daughter, my 3-year-old, is around doing 3-year-old shit. And like people are coming up to me wanting to take pictures, wanting to hug, wanting to like touch, debate. You're like, you don't, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You don't touch him. I'll bite your finger off. And so, and my wife is even worse. Like my wife, like when someone tries to, like she like drop kicks, suplexes, but yeah, and just that question about the
Boundary.
Yeah, the boundary and also the name on the marquee, and then the U, and I found that being more recognized, it affords a certain privilege. You know, people know me. I can get like free shit sometimes, which is always, you know, very helpful. But then there's this expectation of engagement. And again, I don't mind. I love it mostly. But when I'm with my kids and, you know, I don't know where your hands have been and you want to like touch them and now I'm sick. I caught like some type of virus or something yesterday, and I'm 97% sure it's from someone who doesn't wash their legs and decided to give me a pound or give me a hug or something like that, and now I got the unwashed leg virus that I'm dealing with right now. So again. Wash your legs. That's more of the story.
Wash your hands. Don't
Wash
touch
your
the
hands
babies.
and your legs too.
But also, I remember being pregnant in the belly. You know, people coming out of nowhere
and
with their
touch-
hand.
yeah.
Can I touch your belly? And I know, you know, we know it's the same. Can I touch your hair thing? But the hand is already. It's like, no, don't touch me. One thing. One of the many things I loved about What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker were your parents. Are your parents? Your mom's passed away. But at one point, Damon in the book talks about his parents engaging, and they're using the N-word, so they're using the nigga, not nigger, and just going back and forth with each other, and this beautiful banter. And when I was a kid growing up, for those of you who read Brown Girl Dreaming, you know I grew up in a very religious family. We were Jehovah's Witnesses and Muslim, and so there was never any smoking, there was never any cursing, there was never any drinking, and I wanted that family. I wanted that family that cursed and teased each other. We weren't allowed to play cards, so I didn't grow up knowing how to play spades, which is not good in the black community. And so you know, just being able to open that book and engage with your mom and dad who just had this level of love and like for each other, it seemed. Even when your dad was messing up, I mean, there were a couple of times I would have been like, okay, he's out of here. Your mom's like, okay, I got this, you know, I see his flaws.
I mean, there are things that weren't in the book.
Oh,
Okay, I didn't include everything. And there were definitely some times when, you know, they were like, you know what, maybe I'll go this way, you go that way. You know, there were definitely moments like that.
Oh, okay.
You know, but I didn't put that in there. But I'll go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I was just wondering about you just answered it basically, the stuff you don't put in the book, and also about when you were in conversation with Nicole Hannah-Jones, I remember, and this woman. It was an older woman. I mean, she was in her 50s. She wasn't older, maybe. I think she said she was in her 50s, and she said that she had a hard time with the use of the word nigger and niggas in the book. And I love the way you broke that down for her, because it was so enlightening for me. And I was wondering if you could break that down again.
Okay. Thank you. So that happened. I did an event with Nicole Hannah-Jones in Brooklyn. And then the next day I was in DC at Politics and Prose, and I did one with Panama Jackson, you know, from VSB. Another woman asked me the exact same question, and I think it might have even been the same woman. Like, she just was going to follow me around the city to city and just ask me about nigga. And so my answer, you know, and okay, so her issue was that, you know, it's a word that has been used, you know, for hate, bias. It's an ugly. I mean, nigger is the most explosive, the ugliest, you know, word in the English language. And so using, I guess, a colloquial version of that word and using it as much as I do in the book, she felt like there was a generational divide with that. And a woman who asked me the question in DC asked me, and she hadn't read the book yet, but how would my parents feel about it? And what I told her, and what I actually, you know, mentioned to the woman in Brooklyn, is that word has never not been a word that that meant community for me. You know, I think back to hanging out in Newcastle, PA, with my uncles and my cousins, and you know, they were just throwing nigga back and forth, and it was all love. You know, the basketball course that I played on, you know, grew up on. You know, at first I was that little nigga, and then once I got better, I was like, oh, that's that nigga. You know, and so just having that word exist as like this foundational part of not just my lexicon, but just my environment, and it had never been a word that suggested hate, that suggested, you know, bias. It was a word that suggested love, you know, and there's a chapter in the book where I mention, you know, it's a reduction machine. It like when you say that word to someone, like nigga, it's a way of telling the truth. It's like all that bullshit, you know, everything that you said before. I'm speaking to the meat of you, to the guts of you, like nigga, please. And so I also explained to her that, or also, you know, mentioned to her that if I'm in the presence of a black person who I know feels a certain way about the word, then I just won't use it. I mean, I treat it the same way I might treat like a profanity. Where if I know I can't cuss in your house, then I'm not going to be up in your house cussing. But if you come to my house, or come read my book, or come watch me, you know, on stage, then I'm going to use the language that I use.
It's so interesting because I remember in writing Red at the Bone, so it's from all these different points of view. So it's mother, grandmother, grandfather, 16-year-old daughter, her man, and there's one chapter where the 16-year-old daughter is the new generation. You know, she's the youngest generation, and she's talking about being part of this group of black kids at this independent private school, and just the language, like who they are, and that question of, I don't know if you all know the independent school conversation, whereas why all the black kids sitting at the black table where no one asked the white kids why are they all sitting at the white tables, and she breaks down the, you know, that sense of the black table and basketball players dating white girls and all of this stuff. And in terms of coming back to that inside out question and the stories we put on the page and the parts that we leave out, I remember rewriting that chapter like, I don't know, maybe 20 times and trying to decide what story I was going to tell. And when I'm writing, I don't know if this is the case for you, but my reader is not in my head. I'm not thinking about my reader. I'm thinking about what it is I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to say for me. And I kept getting kind of confused in that chapter because I felt like I was too much thinking of the outside world and the response, and not thinking about the truth that I wanted to elicit in that chapter. Did you feel like there was any point where when you write, is your audience in your head?
Yeah, my audience, my target audience is me. You know, even when writing a book, I wanted to write something that I would want to read, and that I wish I would have had the opportunity to read when I was 15 or 25 or even 35. And so that audience stays with me, but it's because it's me. Yeah. Because it's, you know, I'm reading it out loud to myself, and let's say I write a joke. Am I laughing? That's kind of, you know, difficult to maybe make yourself laugh at a thing that you wrote, but that's the standard. Yeah, that's the standard. Where am I laughing at this joke that I told? Do I think that I'm funny? Because if I don't, then no one else will. And yeah, so my target audience, my base is always me, and then I kind of extrapolate out and hope that, you know, other people maybe find some commonality or some whatever with the book.
It's so funny because your kids are young, but mine are 11 and 17 now, and so I'll read something that I think is funny, and 100% of the time they're like, "That's not funny, mommy." So, you know, I stop asking them. But so, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, my 3-year-old definitely does that. Like I try to make her laugh, and she'll just look at me, and it's like, okay, I want some more goldfish. And this is, yeah, she's a very I am glad that getting comfortable in my own skin and my self-esteem being intact or whatever has happened within the last, decade, because a kid will definitely ruin your self-esteem.
Yeah.
Will definitely.
They keep it so real.
Yes, we'll keep it so real. And yeah, we'll definitely make you doubt yourself and question, what is my purpose on this planet? If this 3-year-old doesn't think I'm funny, like, can I make anyone laugh?
Ever again. It's so true. So I have one last question for you. I know you have questions for me. So what's next for you? I know that book just came out, so I hate when people ask me that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna ask
just right now, I'm still doing book-related things.
Are you coming back to New York?
Yeah, I'm coming back. I might be doing a Moth thing on the 20th, and then the Brooklyn Book
Festival.
I'm doing that.
That's in September.
Yeah, that's in September. So I'm doing that too. And so yeah, there's just that, and my editor has hit me up about book 2, and I've kind of used my agent as like a buffer, because I have no idea what book 2 is going to be about. Like, I have no clue. And there's some things that are happening based off of book 1 too that I can't really talk about now, but they're good things.
Oh, good.
They're good things. How about you?
So
like, when your book drops in September.
Yeah. So it's dropping September 17th, and I'm doing a event at the Public with my friend Toshi Regan. So Toshi Regan is a musician, and what she's doing is she's doing songs. The book goes from 1920, from the Tulsa Race Massacre, to 2001, and she's doing songs from each era.
Oh, wow.
And then I'm going to read, and we're going to talk. And yeah, that's at the Public, and then I'm going on book tour. So yeah, but I'm trying to write, because I don't know. I know the writers in the room know this, that when you finish something, the thing you want to do is start something right after, before the reviews start coming in and the people start having their feelings about the thing that's already out in the world. So I'm trying to write. I'm back to writing for young people. So I'm writing a book about a kid whose dad gets CTE.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so we have like 3 minutes, and so I think we could take like 3 questions. Oh, I love that your hand was already up. I can hear you, and I can repeat it. Up, here's the microphone.
Okay. Yes, it sounds much better.
Okay.
All right. So Toni Morrison said, if there's a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. She also says, you want to fly, you got to give up the shit that's weighing you down. And so my question to you is, have you written that book that you want to read? And if not, when do you plan to write that book? And I think you've already talked about shit that may or may not weigh you down, but I just think if you could just kind of speak to that a little bit.
Well, I've written 33 books, so I'm hoping 1 or 2 of them are the book. And I would say that every one is one I've wanted to write. And I always say I write because I have questions, not because I have answers. And as Damon said, I'm trying to write into that whole of the books that weren't there in my childhood. So yeah, I have written it, and I'm gonna keep on writing it.
Yeah, ditto. Except for the 33 book thing, I just have one. But yeah, I wrote a thing that I wanted to read, and yeah, happy that I did that.
Cool. One last question.
Hi, you guys.
Hey.
Okay, so my question, now I'm like blanking, but my question for you guys was that when going through like the process of publishing your book and editing it, did you face any like backlash or people saying, no, we don't want this in the book, that had to deal with things about like race or personal experiences or like words like the N-word and things like that? If that makes sense.
You know what? As far as like the content in the book, no. I guess I've been pretty fortunate where I've been able to. In fact, you know, I've been pushed to go deeper, to be even more specific and even esoteric. Sometimes, when talking about race, racism, myself, whatever. So I didn't get that. I did, however, get some with the original title of my book, which was Nigga Neurosis. And you know, and that's a term that comes up in a book, and it encapsulates the state of being where you're questioning if a thing, good or bad, happened, you know, because you were black. And so sold the book proposal with that. Editor loved it. People at HarperCollins loved it. You know, whatever. And then my editor talked to her people at Barnes & Noble, her people at Amazon, and they're like, you know, we love Damon. We're waiting for his book. We can't wait. But yeah, I don't know if we could carry a book with that title, but I don't know if we could put it like on 72-point font, you know, banner ads on the site or whatever. So we had to think of a different title. But I'm glad that we did, because the title's better. But yeah, I haven't had any of that sort of pushback aside from with the title.
Yeah, that's hysterical. I haven't either. I think that, you know, publishers want a book that's good and that's going to sell. And if your book is that, then they're going to push it through no matter how it's saying it or what it's saying. So I've never been concerned about language being language that's not acceptable. I think the publisher is concerned if someone else is going to want to read that book. And I think the hardest part of writing a book is finishing it. I think a lot of times we have ideas in our head that we want to write, but stuff like, is this going to be publishable? Is this going to be bought? Keeps us from finishing the story. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're done here.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.